The world today feels like it is holding its breath. Every major headline from global news outlets seems to carry a sense of urgency, hinting that we may be standing at the edge of something much larger than just regional disputes. For many, the phrase World War III sounds like the plot of a movie or a history book lesson, but the reality is that geopolitical events are unfolding in ways that make people wonder if such a conflict could truly be possible. From everyday conversations online to debates among world leaders, the question lingers: are we living in a moment that will define the next century? Eastern Europe is one of the regions where this concern feels the strongest. The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has not only devastated local communities but also reshaped the global security landscape. What began as a territorial dispute has expanded into a broader struggle, pulling in NATO, raising defense budgets, and forcing nations to rethink their alliances. The conflict is no longer about two countries. It has become a symbol of a wider contest between democratic values and authoritarian power. At the same time, attention is shifting toward Asia. The South China Sea, a critical trade route carrying trillions of dollars in goods every year, has become a stage for rising tension. China's assertive territorial claims and military presence challenge the influence of the United States and its regional partners. For countries like Japan, the Philippines, and Vietnam, these moves are not just about boundaries at sea, they are about national security and sovereignty. What happens in these waters could shape the balance of power in the entire Indo-Pacific region. When these separate conflicts are viewed together, Russia in Europe and China in Asia, a clearer picture begins to emerge. The world is not facing isolated disputes but interconnected flashpoints that involve major global powers. Analysts describe this as a multi-front tension, where events in one region can directly influence decisions in another. This web of rivalries is what makes the situation so unpredictable, and why people are beginning to ask not if conflict will escalate, but when. Meanwhile, the Middle East continues to face its own struggles. The long-standing disputes between Israel and its neighbors frequently resurface, sparking military clashes that ripple far beyond the region. With every escalation, global powers find themselves drawn in, whether through diplomacy, military aid, or energy concerns. The Middle East is not only rich in culture and history, it is also rich in resources, particularly oil and gas, which means that instability there always has global consequences. Each new spark threatens to ignite wider involvement, raising the stakes for the international community. When we connect the dots between Europe and Asia, the scale of today's tensions becomes clearer. These are not isolated regional issues but overlapping rivalries involving the most powerful nations on Earth. The combination of Eastern Europe's conflict and the disputes in the South China Sea reveals what experts call strategic entanglement. In this environment, a move by one superpower in one region can trigger a reaction in another, creating a chain of unpredictable events. The danger lies not only in deliberate aggression but also in miscalculations. History shows that world wars often begin when leaders underestimate how quickly conflicts can spiral out of control. Beyond Europe and Asia, the Middle East remains one of the most volatile regions in the world. The conflict between Israel and surrounding groups has intensified in recent years, leading to cycles of violence that draw international attention. Regional powers like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey often take sides, and global powers are never far behind, whether through diplomacy, sanctions, or military assistance. Each escalation risks dragging more players into the struggle, making the Middle East a critical flashpoint in the broader picture of global security. Another major factor fueling uncertainty is energy. Russia, as one of the largest exporters of oil and natural gas, has used energy supplies as both a bargaining chip and a political weapon. In response, Western sanctions have reshaped global trade routes, forcing countries to search for alternative suppliers. This shift has caused spikes in fuel prices, disruptions in electricity, and ripple effects across global economies. When energy security becomes uncertain, governments prioritize self-protection, and competition intensifies. This economic tension adds fuel to geopolitical instability and makes cooperation more difficult. The arms race of the 21st century is not limited to tanks, missiles, and fighter jets. Today, nations are investing heavily in cyber warfare and artificial intelligence-driven weapons. Cyber attacks on infrastructure, financial systems, or even communication networks could cripple a nation without a single shot being fired. Meanwhile, autonomous drones, surveillance technologies, and space-based weapons are changing how wars might be fought in the future. This rapid militarization of technology raises questions. Who will dominate this new battlefield, and how will international law keep up with the pace of innovation? At the same time, nuclear rhetoric has re-emerged with alarming frequency. Russia has openly reminded the world of its nuclear arsenal. North Korea continues testing missiles, and debates over Iran's nuclear ambitions remain unresolved. While many experts argue that nuclear deterrence has prevented large-scale wars since 1945, the current climate feels different. The more leaders use nuclear threats as political tools, the higher the risk of misinterpretation or accidental escalation. For ordinary people around the globe, this is perhaps the most frightening aspect of today's tensions. The knowledge that a single misstep could have catastrophic consequences for all of humanity. This raises a fundamental question. Is the world truly moving toward World War III, or are we witnessing a continuation of age-old rivalries expressed in new forms? Historians remind us that major wars rarely start overnight. Instead, they build up slowly, layer by layer, through miscommunication, pride, and the inability of nations to compromise. What we see today, military exercises near contested borders, sanctions, and aggressive speeches, are all signs of tension, but they don't necessarily mean an all-out war is inevitable. The danger is in the gray area, where nations push boundaries without realizing how close they are to crossing a line that cannot be reversed. Looking back at history provides valuable lessons. World War I erupted after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, a single event that triggered a chain reaction due to rigid alliances. World War II, on the other hand, grew out of unchecked aggression by totalitarian regimes while the rest of the world hesitated to respond in time. These examples show that global wars often start with localized disputes that spiral out of control when leaders underestimate the consequences of their actions. Today's smaller conflicts, whether in Eastern Europe, Asia, or the Middle East, could become tomorrow's flashpoints if history repeats itself. One of the clearest rivalries shaping the present era is between the United States and China. Many analysts call this the new Cold War. Instead of competing solely on military grounds, the two powers are clashing on multiple fronts: technology, trade, finance, and even culture. Trade disputes have led to tariffs and restrictions, while technology bans on semiconductors and artificial intelligence are creating separate digital ecosystems. Military posturing in the Indo-Pacific adds another layer of risk, as both sides seek to assert dominance in the region. This rivalry is about more than borders. It's about which system will lead the world in the decades ahead. Europe, meanwhile, faces its own dilemmas. While NATO has strengthened in response to the crisis in Ukraine, European nations are also seeking greater independence in their security strategies. Germany has announced a significant increase in defense spending, France is pushing for a stronger European identity in global affairs, and the United Kingdom is recalibrating its role post-Brexit. The challenge is whether these nations can maintain unity while balancing their domestic priorities. If Europe cannot find common ground, it risks becoming a weaker player in the face of rising global competition. Other regions are far from passive observers. Africa and Latin America, often overlooked in mainstream discussions, are becoming key battlegrounds for influence. Both regions hold critical resources, such as rare earth minerals, oil, and agricultural products, that superpowers desperately need. China has invested heavily in infrastructure across Africa, while the United States and Europe seek to maintain ties through trade and security cooperation. In Latin America, political shifts are drawing interest from Russia and China, eager to challenge Western dominance in what has long been considered America's sphere of influence. These moves show that global tension is not limited to a few hotspots. It is spreading across the entire world stage. While governments debate and military leaders strategize, ordinary citizens around the world are already feeling the effects of these tensions. Inflation has pushed up the cost of everyday goods, from groceries to fuel. Energy shortages in some countries have created blackouts and rising utility bills. Global supply chains, once smooth and efficient, are now disrupted, leading to delays and higher prices. These challenges remind us that geopolitical rivalries are not abstract. They translate directly into daily struggles for families. What may seem like distant political disputes are shaping household budgets and livelihoods in real time. The United Nations, created after World War II with the mission of preventing another global conflict, now faces perhaps its greatest test. Its structure, especially the Security Council, often struggles to act decisively because of veto powers held by major nations. As a result, many crises remain unresolved, and smaller nations sometimes feel unheard. Critics argue that the UN has become less effective at maintaining peace, while defenders say it still plays a critical role in humanitarian aid and international dialogue. The question is whether this institution can adapt to the fast-changing landscape of 21st century geopolitics. So where exactly does the world stand today? The truth lies somewhere between hope and fear. Diplomacy is still alive. Leaders continue to meet, negotiate, and sign agreements aimed at preventing escalation. At the same time, military budgets are growing, new weapons are being developed, and alliances are becoming more rigid. Humanity appears to be walking a tightrope, balancing between the possibility of renewed peace and the danger of a wider confrontation. The outcome depends heavily on choices made in the coming years, and perhaps even in the coming months. The risk of miscalculation remains the most concerning factor. History has shown that wars often start not by design but by accident. A missile launched in error, a cyber attack blamed on the wrong nation, or even a misunderstood military exercise could quickly escalate into something far larger. In a world where communication is instant and military responses are faster than ever, the window for de-escalation is dangerously narrow. This reality means that leaders must act with extraordinary caution and wisdom, as the margin for error is shrinking. And so we return to the central question: is this the beginning of World War III? While it may sound like an exaggeration, the concerns are grounded in real developments. The choices made by global leaders today will shape not only political landscapes but also the lives of billions of people for generations. We are living through a defining moment in history, one where peace and conflict coexist in fragile balance. For viewers like you, staying informed is more important than ever, because understanding these dynamics is the first step toward ensuring that humanity chooses cooperation over destruction.